Okay, earlier we did a really quick look at how we identify the names of the chords that we play. And what I'd like to do now is take you just a little bit farther in depth on reading chord symbol notation. So if you don't mind, let me put those chords back on the board one more time. We'll speed this part up. Now that I've made my snowmen and I've colored in their bottoms so that we know which note is the root, I'm going to go ahead and fill this out using kind of music theory analysis notation, if you will. And that's those Roman numerals. So they're just going to mirror the scale degrees that these come from, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But the uppercase Roman numerals are going to tell us that the chord type is the major chord, and the lowercase is going to tell us that it's a minor chord. So there you have 1 through 7, and for the most part, they follow the format that I just described. The only one, again, that's different is that 7, which is a diminished chord. It's kind of a special case, and you notice that it's still lowercase Roman numerals, but I've got the little degree mark, which tells us that it's a diminished chord with a minor third and a diminished fifth. That's one way to analyze or write the chord symbols for chords in a major key. The other way, which we find more in popular music notation, looks like this. All right, sticking with chords that come from the major key, there's just 3 chord types that we find here. There's major, minor, and diminished. If you write a chord symbol with the letter C and don't put anything else on there, it's just assumed that it's a major chord. That's kind of a convention that we all accept. Same thing like if you look at the F and the G. Those are just major chords. The D and the E and the A say D with a minus sign, which means minor. E minor, A minor. So it's the chord symbol, the root, and then what we call the suffix, which is a minus sign, which tells us that it's a minor chord. Now look, you're going to find sheet music out there that's going to have a whole bunch of different kinds of chord symbol notation. And they're not wrong. There'll be things like M, like an uppercase M for major, lowercase m for minor. Sometimes it'll say MA, sometimes it'll say MAJ. Sometimes there's a triangle, which means major. So in time, you kind of get used to all these different ways that people notate chord symbol notation. But I'm going to go with a really simple approach. If it says C only, then it's assumed that it's C major. And the minus sign and then the degree mark tells us that it's a diminished chord. Later on, we'll get into one more chord type, which is called the augmented chord. But just so you know, if I was going to write a C augmented chord, I would either write it with a C plus, or sometimes we'll write it with a C and then an abbreviated AUG, which means augmented. Chords in the key of C, we now know how to notate them in regular chord symbol notation. There's just one little twist that I'd like to show you, and it goes like this. Sometimes, for effect, we want to play a chord, but we want to change which note is on the bottom. Now, we just learned about inversions, and we said that if the third is on the bottom, that's considered a first inversion chord. Or if the 5 is on the bottom, and I play a C chord with a 5 on the bottom, that's called a second inversion chord. But we don't write the word inversion up above the chord symbol. We have another way to notate when we change the bottom note of a chord. And sometimes we'll even reinforce that with the bass. So if I play C with a G on the bottom, I could also play a G in the bass. And for now, we're going to just call that a C on top of a G. So it's C major. I'll even play just C triad and put a G in the bass. And I'm calling that C over or on top of G. And if I wanted to write that on my chart here, I could put a G in the bass, like that. And now what we have is C slash G, C over G. To keep it simple, I'll do these all with C chords. So there's C over G. If I wanted to play a C chord and put the third, which is an E, on the bottom, then I could play it like this. So we have C major, and then an E in the bass. It's still part of the C chord, but it's the third. And we call that C over or on top of E. And the chord symbol notation looks like this. C slash E. And then just to make things nice and tidy, I'll go back to what would be the original version of the chord, which is C over C. So we have a C chord and a C in the bass, and that's just a root position C chord, and all you got to do is just put a C there. So this is a nice little thing that you can do where you play a different bass note over the chord, and it gives you the ability to kind of create a different sound. There's the 5 to a G chord, back to 1.